There's something almost primal about caving, isn't there? This idea that we can explore a whole other world that's hidden right under our feet, a place that's just silent, ancient, and beautiful. But here's the thing, those same landscapes, they're incredibly unforgiving. We're talking about mazes of tight passages, razor-sharp rocks, and a darkness so complete it's almost a physical thing.
So that brings up the one question that probably haunts every single caver. Because when something goes wrong deep underground, a simple mistake, a tiny accident, can turn into a desperate fight for your life in the blink of an eye. And that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. We're going to look at 3 really harrowing rescues that showed just how dangerous it is to be trapped below the surface.
So our first case is a perfect example of how quickly the solid ground you're standing on can just betray you. This is what's known as a mechanical trap, and it's a situation that's brutally simple, but also completely terrifying.
Okay, so the person this happened to, Mike Barnes, he was no beginner, not at all. He and his 2 buddies were seasoned cavers, and they were actually mapping out parts of Black Eagle Cave that, get this, no one had ever seen before. So these guys were prepared, they knew what they were doing, but as you'll see, in a cave, sometimes experience just isn't enough.
And this is the exact moment everything went sideways. Mike was navigating a steep, really narrow drop, and he placed his foot on what he thought was a totally stable rock. It wasn't. It just shattered under his weight, and his leg plunged right into a crevice between 2 sharp edges.
The physics of what happened next are just horrific. As his body fell forward, his entire weight basically became a lever, twisting his trapped leg. He said he felt this intense, immediate pain. He knew right in that second that it was broken. His friends could barely even reach him in that tight space, and if they tried to just pull him out, well, it would have made the injury catastrophic.
And this gets us right back to the core problem here. Mike was in a mechanical trap. He wasn't lost. He wasn't running out of air. He was just physically pinned by the cave itself. The rescue was this slow, agonizing process. For hours, his friends had to carefully support his body just to relieve the pressure, while they meticulously chipped away at the rock until his leg was finally, painstakingly set free.
All right, let's move to our next case, which, believe it or not, actually escalates the danger. We're going from a sudden injury to a prolonged, torturous ordeal. See, in this case, the trap isn't just about being stuck. It's about the cave actively fighting back, squeezing tighter with every single hour that passes.
So here we have Craig Douglas. He and his friends were exploring Keyhole Cave, and they were aiming for the bottom, which was about 113 feet down. Now you have to understand, the deeper you go, the more the risks just multiply. The way out is longer, the passages get tighter, and the whole environment becomes that much more hostile.
This was it. The final gatekeeper to the lowest point of the cave. A passage so small you literally have to crawl on your belly to get through. Craig went through first, and just as he reached the edge of the final drop, his foot slipped. Instantly, he was caught. His knee was just wedged between 2 unmoving rocks. And this is the real horror of a compression trap. It's a cruel, cruel paradox. Your natural instinct is to struggle, to try and free yourself, right? But doing that only makes the trap worse. Craig was pinned, facing downwards, with all of his body weight pulling on that trapped knee. Any tiny movement just tightened the rock's grip.
You see, being stuck was only the beginning of the nightmare. 3 other clocks started ticking immediately. First, his knee started to swell up, which began to cut off blood circulation. Second, the constant contact with that cold rock was just sucking the heat from his body, pushing him into hypothermia. And third, in that tiny, confined space, the oxygen level started to drop, making every single breath a struggle for both him and his rescuers.
43 hours. Let that sink in. Nearly 2 full days trapped in that exact position. Rescuers tried absolutely everything. Pulling, using oil, but nothing worked. They had to start pumping fresh air down to him and wrap him in thermal blankets just to keep him alive while they slowly, painstakingly drilled away at the rock around him.
I mean, just try to imagine this moment. After more than 30 hours of this, his body is just giving out. The rescue team finally gets the space just wide enough for one last shot. And what do? They hand the drill to Craig. And somehow, with the absolute last ounce of strength he had, he's the one who drills that final bit of rock away and pulls his own leg free. It's just an unbelievable act of will.
So for our final case study, we're going to look at what might be the most urgent threat of all, a severe medical emergency. Because in this scenario, the problem isn't just about getting the victim out, it's about getting critical medical care in before it's too late.
Here we meet 18-year-old Laura Scherderbach. She was with a group of friends on an overnight caving trip in New River Cave. This particular cave was known for being really wet and full of sharp, eroded rocks, a dangerous combination, especially if you're a less experienced caver.
And it happened in just a fraction of a second. She was climbing a narrow passage, her feet went out from under her, and she fell, landing with her legs apart directly onto a sharp spire of rock. The injury was immediate. It was severe, and it resulted in massive blood loss.
And this is where the cave itself became the enemy. The two friends who scrambled out to try and get help got totally disoriented. In that absolute darkness, every tunnel starts to look the same. And this crucial delay meant that Laura was bleeding out, getting colder, and slipping into shock, all while she was alone with her remaining friends 2,000 feet inside a mountain. The rescue operation was, frankly, a logistical nightmare. First, the teams just had to find her. Then, they had to somehow turn a section of this wet, dirty cave into a trauma room, giving her IV fluids and treating her wounds right there on the cave floor. Only after all that could they begin the grueling 9-hour process of carrying her out on a stretcher through passages so tight they had to constantly turn and twist and maneuver her just to get through.
So, after hearing these 3 absolutely harrowing stories, what can we take away from them? Well, each one really reveals a different side of the same fundamental truth about why cave rescues are just so uniquely challenging.
When you look at these incidents side by side like this, a really clear pattern emerges. The initial problem is never the only problem. For Mike Barnes, a broken leg is serious, sure, but on the surface, it's manageable. Underground, that tight space turns it into a life-threatening crisis of extraction. For Craig Douglas, it wasn't just about being pinned, it was the entire environment, the cold rock, the thin air, waging a war against his body. And with Laura Scherderbach, a critical medical emergency was made 10 times worse by the cave's maze-like nature, turning that rescue into a desperate race against blood loss and the clock.
But you know what really connects all these stories is a powerful, frankly inspiring theme. Survival down there isn't just about waiting for help to arrive, it's about this incredible partnership. It's the psychological resilience of someone like Craig Douglas, who after 40 hours of agony found the strength to literally participate in his own rescue. And it's the creative ingenuity of rescuers who can turn a cave into an operating room, who pump air deep into the earth, and who painstakingly chip away at solid rock for hours on end, just flat out refusing to give up.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. I mean, these stories are terrifying, right? But people are still going to explore caves. It really makes you wonder about the human spirit. What is it that drives us to push into the dark, unknown parts of our world, even when we know they can be so incredibly unforgiving?